Good evening across America and around the world. I'm William Cooper, and yes, folks, my voice is once again failing. I beg your patience and your forgiveness. But don't worry about me. Remember Randy Weaver and pray for those under siege by federal forces in Waco, Texas. They have committed no crime. They have broken no law. The Hour of the Time is brought to you tonight by Swiss America Trading. In 1976, folks, we had an economy struggling out of recession. We had low interest rates, cheap gold, and depressed hard assets. We elected a president that was a Southern liberal Democrat governor, a Washington outsider. He had an ultra-liberal running mate, promised to tax big corporations, promised more, better jobs, and use more government spending to stimulate the economy. Well, all this sounds very similar to the president we just elected, doesn't it? Between 1976 and 1980, the inflation rate soared to double digits. Wise investors sought the protection of gold and silver, which ultimately went up over 500%. Now, if you feel that paper assets will be safe for the next 4 years, ignore this offer. If your assets are protected against high inflation, high interest rates, a possible currency recall, or government collapse, then relax. You've got nothing to worry about. If you feel the government is going to look out for your best interest, then don't call. But if you're like me, William Cooper, and many, many others who have really looked at the economy of this country and really understand who and what the Federal Reserve represents and the real purpose of the Internal Revenue Service, then call Swiss America Trading at 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646. And have the experts there show you how you can protect yourself. Call 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646. And mention my name, William Cooper, for a free newsletter on protecting your future. Call today. Call right now. 1-800-289-2646. And tell them William Cooper sent you. The siege continues in Waco, Texas. A small group of American citizens exercising their rights under Article 1 of the Constitution, which gives them freedom of religion, and their rights under the second article and amendment to the Constitution, which gives them the right to keep and bear arms. They have committed no crime. They have broken no laws. They are resisting alone overwhelming odds in an attempt to stop the encroaching totalitarian socialist state that we will all know as the New World Order.
The person on the other end of the line here with me is Mr. Gary Hunt, who's been in Waco, Texas since shortly after the beginning of this month and has been following everything that's been happening there. And we're going to get his version of what he's seen, what he's heard from the people that he's talked to, the experiences that he's had with the law enforcement agencies, and those people known as Branch Davidian who are still held hostage by federal stormtroopers in Waco, Texas. Gary, welcome to the Hour of the Time.
Thank you, Bill.
What can you tell us about the situation as it stands right now?
Well, right now, the siege continues. The optimism of the Branch Davidians is higher than it has been in the first 10 days of the siege, at least. I think they're becoming aware that America is behind them, or at least the people of America.
How are they finding this out, Gary? Do they have a shortwave radio? Do they have regular radios? Or are they able to hear what's going on outside that compound?
We know at least that they're picking up KGBS out of Dallas, an AM station, and that they are picking up the press conferences that are held every morning at 10:30.
Great. Well, they do have a lot of support out here from patriots who really understand what this is all about, and that it really is the second battle in a war that's being fought against the American people. Why did you go to Waco, Texas, Gary?
Well, Sunday, February 28th, a friend of mine from Interveiw, Texas, called me and asked me if I knew what was occurring in Waco. At the time, about 11:34 the time, I did not. The events here had just begun unfolding. I called the local TV station, Channel 10, which had covered the original siege, and in speaking with the reporter there, as he was reading off the monitor, he kept referring to the cult. However, in a casual conversation, he mentioned that they were a sect. I realized then that something was beginning to influence the press, and the story sounded quite a bit like what happened last August up in Idaho. I continued to follow that through Thursday of that first week, and by then I realized that something was occurring down here that was going to significantly affect American history or the course of our country for some time to come. By Saturday, then, I was prepared to leave my business and come out here for the duration. I did not expect at the time that it would be nearly this long, but I wanted to see firsthand what was happening and attempt to affect that if I could. I've been out here since, and I do plan on staying until this is over.
Well, I commend you for that, Gary, and I think there should be many more people down there lending support to those people. And I firmly believe that if 2 or 3 million Americans would show up and just very quietly stand unarmed around that compound, that the siege would have to be lifted at that point, and there would have to be a congressional investigation call. However, I don't give too much hope that that's going to happen. But we'll have to wait and see. What happened when you got there? What was the first thing that you did?
Well, one of the ideas that I had when I came here between Thursday and Saturday when I flew out, in fact, I had drawn up instructions, was to do exactly what you just mentioned. I had been told by some people first Saturday when I left that there would be between 200 and 500 people here. And then Sunday morning, that number I'd been told had raised to 900 people. As it was, about 80 people showed up in Waco. And out of those 80, 20 were willing at one point to go out and physically intervene, unarmed, but to enter the conference area and camp out between the bad forces and the Camp Davidian Church. By the time we were ready to go, that had dwindled to perhaps 3 of us still willing to go as they discussed the potential risk of going against the Army out there.
Well, that's what happens when things get down to real nitty-gritty, real protecting your country. All of these sheeple out there willing to send their sons and daughters off to die in the Sahara Desert or someplace in the Middle East. So George Bush and all the other oil people can keep their oil and get rich, but when it comes to stand up and protecting their own country, they just melt away into the darkness. Why does that happen?
If people would stop and think what is happening here in Waco, that the Branch Davidians are perhaps the only patriots in this country. Right now, with their very lives, they're defending every door in this country, and very few of us are willing to offer them any assistance in that effort.
That's correct.
With your effort, there's not a door in this country that's not susceptible to being broken down by the same stormtroopers that have attempted to break down their door.
Absolutely, and I believe that if the people of the United States lose this battle, because the people in this compound that are surrounded and being held under siege are fighting a battle for all of us, all of our rights and freedoms, all of our Creator-endowed rights, all of the protections given to us by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And if we lose this battle, I believe that will signify the end of the United States of America as we have traditionally known it, and will give the total go-ahead for the New World Order to persecute, to hound, to confiscate, to murder whoever and whatever they will. What do you feel about that, Gary?
No, I feel the same. I've equated the events down here. Now, Randy Weaver was a small family. He was lost in the press. Waco is not. We're all aware of this. This I equate with Lexington and Concord.
Absolutely.
The issues are similar. We've got the opposing army. We've got the attempt to secure the weapons that were stored in Concord back 220 years ago. The British have come, and the defenders are standing there. If we think back of those, I guess about 100 Americans, the first Americans, that stood against the British troops, had they not been willing to give their lives for a cause, then we wouldn't have what was once the greatest nation in the world, and could be again if we can develop the same spirit and willingness to defend our neighbors as we would like them to defend us that made this great nation.
Well, President Roosevelt once said, the way to end this problem is to put a chicken in every pot. And what he meant by that is if we can just give everybody something to eat, they'll be happy, and there won't be any rebellions, there won't be any uprisings, there won't be any dissension, and we can go ahead and institute whatever kind of government we want. You think the American people have bought into that?
Oh, I think they have. I think that Roosevelt forgot to tell them how much that chicken was going to cost.
Well, we're finding out now, aren't we? What started this thing, Gary? What happened in Waco, Texas? Let's go back a little bit further. I remember the first press conference that I saw on television after they had lost four BATF agents to the gunfire from the compound. They said that they were there because a foreign agent or a foreign person from some other country had informed the State Department that the members of Branch Davidian in Waco, Texas were preparing to commit mass suicide, much as the Jonestown mass suicide that occurred in Guyana. Is that what you believe started all this off?
Well, I have not heard that story. The story that I've heard down here is that there was an investigation over illegal weapons. That investigation had gone on for the 8 months. The sheriff of the county, Jack Harwell, had participated in the investigation. He had also explained to the BATF that in 1986, when David Corse was charged with attempted murder, that there were a number of weapons that were subsequently, after the mistrial, returned to David Corse. But the investigation had gone in 8 months. The last, I think, 2 months were spent in training down at Fort Hood for the actual assault itself. There were 3 warrants. One was an arrest warrant, and 2 were search warrants. Those are still sealed. So we don't know what the purpose was. The BATF, early on when they were more cooperative with me, did say that it was an illegal weapon arrest, and that the warrants were, or one of the warrants at least, the search warrant was for illegal weapons. We've heard a number of stories since then. We have subsequently heard allegations of mass suicide. Those disappeared very quickly when reality or common sense.
Well, of course, if they're going to commit mass suicide, they would have already done it. I mean, what more opportune time when the whole world is looking at them? That's just absolutely absurd. If they haven't committed mass suicide by now, then they never intended to in the first place. What we saw was on the network news, and it specifically stated that the State Department had received word from a foreign source that they were going to commit mass suicide. Now, right off the bat, I knew that that was a lie, because if that was true, there's no federal law against committing suicide. Federal troops have no authority, jurisdiction, or anything else there. But yet they sent the FBI and the BATF, which is for those of you out there who may not understand what that means, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and they physically raided the place with SWAT team and anti-terrorist units without even trying to go through the motion of picking this guy up. We know for a fact that he goes into Waco once a week and eats in the same restaurant at the same table every night, at that time, every week, at the same time. And if they really wanted him, all they had to do was wait for him to go in and pick him up by himself. We also know he's always cooperated with local officials, and whenever they've asked him to come in and speak to them, he's never hesitated to do it. So why do you think that if they were after him, why do you think they waited till these people were having their religious service and then raided them during the middle of that?
Well, we know from the New York Times article on Sunday and subsequent answers by the FBI and ATF in the press conferences that there was an element of surprise involved, that they had moved the raid up, and they've called it a raid from the beginning, not an arrest, but a raid. They moved it up from Monday the 1st to Sunday the 28th to maintain the element of surprise. They probably picked Sunday, hoping that everybody would be in a prayer service or a Bible reading or something, so that they could come in the second floor windows with their automatic German rifles and would be able to secure the complex with virtually no resistance.
But Gary, in light of their statements that they're only after Koresh, and it's on and first it was because they're all going to commit mass suicide, and then they were cited as being terrorists. On news conferences they called them terrorists, but we know they didn't go after them because they're terrorists, because they've never terrorized anybody. And now they're talking about federal firearms violations, and this is they were after Koresh to do this. Why did they raid the compound when everybody was there? Why didn't they wait until they could get Koresh alone and avoid this whole scenario?
Well, I think that their motivation behind that, the only logical conclusion I can come to is this was a training exercise and what they intend to be doing all over the country. And the reason they had so many people was probably the benefit of training 100 to 120 troops in one on-the-job training experience, how to break down doors and arrest large amounts of people with a massive force.
Well, I think you're right on there. I think that's exactly why they did it. I think they wanted resistance. I think they wanted to create an incident. I think they wanted to make Christians look bad. I believe that they wanted to make anybody who owns a firearm look bad, even though that right is protected under the Constitution and religion is protected under the Article 1 of the Constitution, and a lot of other things. What have you found out since you've been there, Gary? What's the truth about what's happening according to what you know and what you've found out?
Well, the truth, as best I can tell, is not what the ATF and FBI tell us. They're constantly changing their stories. I do think the truth lies fundamentally in what you said. Abraham Lincoln, I think, told us many years ago that the Constitution should be preached from every pulpit. Now, if they don't want the Constitution in this country, obviously they've got to destroy the pulpits. And it's easy to make a man like David Koresh, who has a very strong following, look evil. And so they felt that they could go in with allegations of child abuse. The Jonestown scenario, which was brought up a couple of weeks ago and dropped very rapidly when they realized how foolish it was. It might have been the second time that occurred.
And we now know all these things are false, but there are millions of Americans out there who watch their television and read their newspaper, and they believe anything the authorities tell them because they don't believe that the authorities would ever lie to them, even though they find out every year that they do. For instance, we know that Koresh is not a polygamist. We know that he has one wife. Is that correct?
My understanding is he has one wife.
And he has 2 children, also according to what we've discovered. Is that correct?
I'm not sure how many children he's got. I do understand that one of his daughters, a 2-year-old daughter, was killed in the initial assault. That's
what we understand also. She was in the nursery, and the BATF people were firing blindly into the nursery after they threw a gas grenade in there.
Well, they continue to assert that they are trained to pick their targets.
Oh, they always.
Assume that that's true. Why would they want to kill a 2-year-old girl?
That's correct. Absolutely. Why? The truth is that they probably weren't picking targets at all. Our information is that they were firing blindly into the nursery and couldn't see because of the cloud of gas from the gas grenades.
Well, we do have some videos showing too a curtain being pulled back, and the stormtrooper could not pull it down, and obviously they did not stick their heads in to observe what was inside.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a short gap, there was smoke coming out as if a flashbang was thrown in that room. That seems rather indiscriminate to me, and when you consider the potential for damage from a flashbang or percussion grenade, there is video evidence of lack of discrimination in their assaults.
Absolutely. Have the federal agents taken any means to suppress the truth of what's going on? Have they confiscated videotape? Have they threatened news reporters? Anything like that?
Well, there are a number of abuses along that line. Let's see. We'll start at the beginning. We do know that Channel 10 had two cameramen that covered the initial assaults, and those were the videos that were seen at first, but have not been seen after the first showing. My understanding in talking with a number of people is that those were seized by the FBI as evidence. The ATF has admitted that they had at least one camera rolling during the entire event. Obviously, again, a training exercise, and they wanted to show how to do it. I'm sure they won't use it for training in the future, but that, again, is secured as evidence. Mr. Lewis Beam was down here 2 weeks ago Saturday, I think it was. He, under legal press credentials, was in the press conference, and he asked a big question. He had merit, and that question was something to the effect that, can we take it by the Gestapo tactics that were used in this raid, that this is the beginning of a police state in America? Well, he was escorted out of the press conference and has never returned.
You mean he was escorted out? There was no answer given?
There was apparently a mumble stutter answer, but no concrete answer.
And the rest of the press corps stood there and allowed this to happen without protest?
That's correct. Well, I've come up with the term since I've been here. I used to refer to them as establishment press. Now I call them bubble press because no matter how complex the news, they've got to encapsulate that in a 2-minute bubble.
I think they're a pack of miserable, traitorous cowards who haven't got the backbone or the balls to stand up and do what they know is right. They've sold themselves to somebody, I don't know who or why, and for what. I mean, journalists don't even get paid that much. Why would they go along with this?
You know, I think some of it is pressure. I have a legitimate newspaper. I had gone to the press conference 4 days in a row, and then on a Thursday, the Thursday after Louis Bing was in there, I was stopped at the door and taken over to the side room, and they asked me a number of questions about my newspaper and questioned the legitimacy of it. Finally, they agreed that it was legitimate. I'm not sure what legitimate newspaper means, but they determined that it was legitimate and allowed me in. It was on Thursday. I went to the press conference on Friday. Saturday I did not go, but Saturday evening there was a bit of an incident out at the press site near the complex. As a result of that, I was under the credentials of AEN out of Indiana. They had an agreement with me for me to go out with them to cover a portion of the story and look at the press site near the complex. It was the only time I've been there. On exiting, we were told that they were falsified credentials and interrogated by the FBI and finally released. Well, Sunday I was not allowed in the press conference, and from Sunday through Friday, I kept trying to get an explanation as to why I was not allowed, because my credentials had been proven legitimate. Only one reporter stood up for my position, and Dick Rebus with the Dallas Observer. I will say that of all the press people, he is the only one that doesn't feel that there are different levels of press, and that virtually every member of the press should be allowed into the press conferences.
Well, absolutely. I know that Article 1 of the Constitution of the United States of America makes no distinction between different levels of the press. It says that the freedom of the press shall not be infringed.
Well, I think one definition of press credentials now, and it's probably correct, is press credentials allow you the right that every citizen should have in this country.
That's true. That's very true. Well, let's go to the beginning of this, Gary. Do you think that the people at Branch Davidian knew that this raid was going to occur?
They may have. They had been investigated by a TV program that works near them, and I think the same thing's going on up in Montana right now. They had been investigated by the Waco Tribune. The Waco Tribune broke their story on Saturday, and now the FBI ATF are trying to accuse the Waco Tribune of leaking information to the Branch Davidians. That's kind of interesting. I always liked it when I could tell you a secret, but I expected you to have to privilege the secret more than I privileged it myself when I told you.
Not only that, it sounds like the Fed is admitting that they were briefing the local news media that something was going to happen.
Well, it appears to be, and we understand, too, that in Oklahoma right now, they have finished the set for a FBI story movie on the raid at Waco. Apparently that was under construction before the raid began.
You mean they were filming a movie about this particular raid, and it was finished before the raid even began?
Well, the movie was. The set was under construction when the raid began.
Oh, I see. They were building a set to film a movie about this raid before the raid ever began.
That's my understanding, and I think that's been confirmed in the press conferences.
This is incredible.
So, as far as the secret, the FBI and ATF, or the ATF only at that time, expected other people to respect the secrecy of a secret that they could not respect it themselves. But it's common knowledge. Now, also, Belmead, the city, the Branch Davidian complex is near Elk, which is a fork in the road, but Belmead is a little town just down the road from them, that the ATF forces suited up right off the main road, Highway 84, in the city parking area, the Civic Center, that morning. So here's between 80 and 120 people putting on their black battle gear.
In a small town where anything unusual travels by word of mouth like lightning.
Right, or even by telephone.
Sure.
So by going public 2 hours before the raid, when they were suiting up, there's not a high degree of secrecy that they could anticipate.
Well, I don't think that they wanted any secret, Gary. I think that they wanted to ensure there would be armed opposition. I think that they wanted a show here to try to convince the American people, number one, that Christians are fanatical, lunatics, and number two, anybody that owns a weapon is dangerous to everybody else.
Well, when we were kids, we used to play with firecrackers, and every once in a while we got one with a fast fuse and ended up with sore fingers, and I think that's what kind of happened here.
They certainly are going to have some sore fingers.
They expected that there would be casualties on the other side, perhaps their own side. That's evidenced by the fact that they did not advise their own people of what to expect, that there might be automatic weapons. And whether there are or not, we still have to determine.
That's true.
We don't hear any automatic fire at all, so it's hard to tell if there was full automatic fire.
Well, I can tell you from my experience in Vietnam is that unless a person has been practicing and using an automatic weapon for some time, that they usually never can hit anything, and most people who fire automatic weapons who haven't been using them and aren't expert with them and haven't been firing them for quite some time usually expend all the ammunition shooting at the moon. So the fact that 4 BATF officers and several others were wounded, 4 were killed and several others were wounded, would tell me that these people in there either have had a hell of a lot of practice with automatic weapons, and I don't believe that they have any, number one, or number two, were just good shots who were protecting something that they held dear, so they made sure that their bullets counted. Let's go to the beginning of this, Gary, and how did all this come about? What happened?
Whoops, I'm sorry, we can't do that. Gary, hold on. We've got to take a short break. Folks, don't go away. We'll be right back after this pause.
How did all this come about? What happened?
As far as what?
Well, you've already told us that they came into town and were suiting up hours before the thing happened, and that obviously the press knew what was going to happen because they accused the press of warning these people. So this whole thing was planned well in advance. Press were obviously briefed. They came in early that day and suited up in plain view of all the townspeople, which is just asking for these people to be warned. And then what did they do?
Well, the Channel 10 newsmen were present at the site before the ATF rolled in.
So that proves a prior briefing, without any shadow of a doubt.
Correct. And the ATF people were friendly towards the press people at that point in time. The Waco Tribune was out there. The Waco Tribune vehicle was run over by a Bradley later on, allegedly pushing it out of the road. It was flattened like a pancake. But originally, early on, before it unfolded the way it did, there was an agreeable nature to the ATF forces towards the press. After the ATF got their backside shot up as badly as they did, they were very antagonistic towards the press, as was evidenced by the Waco Tribune vehicle being rolled over, and some of the attitudes that are seen in some of the videos of angry voices towards the press. They got caught. Things went wrong. They got caught, and they didn't like the idea of this being public. All of a sudden, it didn't go their way.
Well, they're obviously extremely embarrassed, as they should be. So how did they get in there? What started all this thing off?
Well, as near as I can tell, in talking with the people here in the original video that was apparently just one time on Channel 10, the ATF vehicles rolled up into the complex area. The bad forces jumped out of the vehicles then and began running towards the building. Some were hiding behind the vehicles. Apparently they did have a plan, and people have objectives. There were at least 2 cattle trucks with tarps. Out of those trucks jumped stormtroopers with ladders, aluminum ladders. They ran up and began climbing up to the rooftops to serve arrest papers through second-story windows. Now, my understanding at that point is that David Forge came outside. Now, there are 3 pieces of evidence that we have that kind of support this. Sharon Wheeler, that first week, was saying we were outgunned. They had guns that could shoot through doors. We did not. About a week later, Bob Ricks from the FBI stated that David Forge ran back inside, slammed the door, and then they began firing inside the complex.
Now, why would she say they have guns that can shoot through doors and we do not?
Well, the only thing that I don't quite understand that. I'm not sure. I understand there were M16s, possibly AK-47s inside. There's no indication that there was any 50 caliber machine gun or semi-automatic fire from inside. But the stormtroopers were using MP5s, which is 9mm German-made, and I guess there was some M16s or 15s as well, and then they were using 9mm pistols.
Well, we know that all of those will shoot through a normal door.
A normal door. Now, assuming this is built more like a farm, it could have been 1.5 inches or 2 inches of wood in the door. I don't know why she said that, but it does tell us something. That David Forge could not have been shot through the door if Sharon Wheeler was correct.
Well, if she's correct, sounds to me like she was trying to say something that the American people would interpret as meaning that these people had some kind of terrible weapons, when all the indications and all of the testimony that I've heard and that my agents from CAGI, the Citizens Agency for Joint Intelligence, have heard is that they don't have these kinds of weapons at all. And if they do, they certainly haven't used them yet.
Well, initially the story of 50 caliber was very strong, but then it dropped after I turned out a press release regarding that. And I'll get into that in a minute, but I'd like to show how this evidence shows that the ATF must have fired first. Okay, well, we've got Sharon Wheeler saying that they could shoot through doors, we could not. We've got Bob Rick saying that David Koresh ran back inside, the people inside then began firing. Well, David Koresh, we know, was shot in the side in either the arm or the hand. He received 2 shots. Presumably, they must have happened before he went back inside, because then he was inside the fortified building. So I think we've got an omission on the part of Mr. Rickson that he failed to mention that the ATF had opened fire before David ran back inside. There was a statement earlier on when David was allowed access to one of the local radio stations where he was obviously in pain from the injury, but he was saying, I'd gone outside to see what had happened. They had their guns out. I said, don't shoot, don't shoot. They shot me, and I ran back inside. So we put all 3 of these together, and I think there can be little doubt that the ATF began firing. Now, speaking with the people here who saw the early videos, they have estimated to me that between a couple dozen and a couple hundred shots were fired by the ATF before the people from inside began firing.
This conforms to all the information that we've received from everyone that we've talked to. Before we continue, Gary, there's been all this stuff in the news and the newspapers that Koresh claims that he's Jesus Christ. Does he really do that?
Well, I have never met anybody or heard him on any of the broadcasts that they've given say that he was Jesus Christ.
We have not been able to find anyone who's ever heard him say that either. In fact, we have found people who don't even like him or his church who say that he's never said that he's Jesus Christ, even though they don't like him and don't like his church. Go ahead, continue.
I think you might say in a symbolic sense that he represents Christ, but then I compare that to the Pope of the Catholic Church who talks with God, and I don't see that there's much difference except the size of the 2 religions.
Oh, well, there's quite a bit of difference. The Pope claims that he is God and that he's Christ's vicar on earth, and but be that as it may, I don't...
We should get the ATF to go to the Vatican now.
Absolutely.
That sure has automatic rifles.
So what happened? What happened next?
Well, the next significant event was the BATF obviously got their backside kicked, something totally unexpected. They had 4 dead.
How many wounded?
16 wounded.
4 dead and 16 wounded.
16 wounded. Now, what they did then is made a plea to David Koresh to allow them to move their dead and wounded from the battlefield.
Yes.
And David Koresh, graciously, like a good Christian, allowed that to happen. The ATF, though, then denied medical supplies until the following Saturday, almost a week later, and still would not provide the sort of supplies that David asked for. David and his people do not believe in AMA medicine. They eat health foods and they believe in health remedies. I have tried to get even the Red Cross involved, and surprisingly, even the National Red Cross in Washington refused to cooperate to any degree in attempting to get humane supplies into David Koresh that would be health foods and remedies. So the FBI, or the ATF, expects the humanitarian considerations out of the people inside, but at the same time, they deny that same privilege to the people inside.
Right, and then they called them terrorists.
Well, they must be terrorists. How else could you justify turning off power and...
No, they called the people inside terrorists.
Well, they must be terrorists, because how else could the ATF justify cutting off their power? I mean, if we believe the ATF side, these people are worse than most of the enemies we fought in any war, because we've always allowed them medical supplies through the Red Cross. So I think we have to assume that the ATF is correct. These people are terrorists. There can be no other answer.
Well, there has to be another answer, and we got to be careful with what we say over the air if we don't really mean it, simply because there's a lot of people out there whom I really call sheeple who might hear this broadcast and believe that you mean verbatim what you're saying right now.
Well, let's clarify that. We've got some very humane people inside. We've had the ATF allege that they are holding their people hostage, but very freely. They've allowed the release of a number of their people to come out. I say release, that's a misnomer. They have allowed their people to come out. Those who chose to come out, the hostages are the people inside of the complex. The hostage holders are the FBI, denying them free access to.
That's correct. The people inside are armed, and they're not being held hostage by Koresh or anybody else. They are in there because they want to be in there, and they're standing for principle and for ideals and for creator-endowed rights. They're standing for the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and they are indeed being held hostage, but by the federal government and its agencies acting illegally, in my estimation. And are there military troops there, Gary?
I've seen videos, and I'm trying to get copies of people in U.S. Army uniforms. Now, we've got some funny circumstances. Just recently in a press conference, the ATF, or the FBI, in an attempt to justify the use of 3 National Guard helicopters in the initial assault, said that the National Guard was using infrared to determine if there was an amphetamine lab inside of this church. They did detect a hot spot. I would assume that hot spot was probably the kitchen, because on Sunday morning it would take quite a bit of heat to cook food for 120 people. But that was to justify the National Guard helicopters, so we know they were involved. The Bradleys apparently were National Guard and were on loan. Some of the operators were National Guard or ATF. ATF, in one of the press conferences, indicated that the reason the Waco Tribune vehicle was run over is that their troopers are not trained in driving Bradleys. They brought the tanks up from Fort Hood. My understanding was that the National Guard would not supply drivers for the tanks or the tanks themselves, and that active duty United States Army personnel were brought into this engagement. Now, to my understanding now, we've got the first military vehicles being used directly against American citizens since the Civil War.
In what is supposed to be a law enforcement action, and the Constitution and the laws of this land expressly forbid the military in any way, shape, or form from being used for enforcement of the law. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, you mentioned something, law enforcement. Remember, these used to be peace officers. Now they're law enforcement. They were serving a very simple arrest warrant. When I was a kid, I remember the no-knock warrant. Anytime a no-knock warrant was issued, the press made a big deal of it. It was a rare exception that a no-knock could be issued. It's become a way of life. I mean, in this no-knock, they were entering windows and everything else. The world has changed a lot in my lifetime, and to call this law enforcement when they use 120 people to serve an arrest warrant, 2 search warrants, I think we've gone beyond the police state, and we've actually stepped over into a military state.
Well, that's what I believe, and I think it happened a long time ago, and they're just now letting us know and exercising the powers that they've had by treaty under the United Nations Charter and through the UN Participation Act, the Disarmament Agency, the Disarmament Act, and many, many others that people don't know much about, but are just beginning to become aware of. What have you found out about the way that this was carried out? For instance, you were telling me earlier off the air about the ATF agents pulling aside curtains and throwing something inside. Could you go over that with us?
Well, we have a video that was broadcast a few times on the first day and was subsequently edited down considerably. In that video, there are 4 ATF soldiers climbing a ladder to a window. Now, that window was identified in maps produced by, or drawings produced by ATF to be to their ammunition storage area on the 2nd floor. It would seem foolish to store ammunition on the 2nd floor. It would seem more practical to store it in an underground bunker. One of the people that got out later identified that room as David Forrest's bedroom. At any rate, these 4 troopers climbed the ladder. One lies prone facing up the gabled roof to protect against anybody coming over the roof. The other three then are right at the window. One of them begins breaking out the window. Then there's a gap in the video, and then you see a smoke billowing out of the window as if the flashbang was thrown in there, the percussion grenade. And then three BATF agents climbed in the window. Then there's a gap in the film, and then you see now this next scene is one that you see over and over again. You see a BATF soldier right next to the window with gun in hand facing the window, and then 4 or 5 rounds come through the wall behind him, large holes explode in the wall. Then one strikes apparently right by his Kevlar helmet, knocking him down, where he lies still on the roof for a few seconds, and then he got up slowly and started moving towards the ladder. Now, I'm not sure if the other 3 stormtroopers were still inside that room when that occurred. If they were, they must have been killed inside, or they were doing the firing that hit the one trooper.
Our information is that 2 of the dead BATF personnel were killed by the Branch Davidians, and 2 were killed by their own fire. Do you have any confirmation of any of that?
Well, I've been trying to get as much proof of anything as possible, and so I end up relying a lot on the ATF conferences. We have been told that 2 were killed on a roof and 2 were killed on the ground. In the press conference the other day, there was an Officer Williams, or Agent Williams, who apparently was shot, went down, got back up, began firing again, was shot again, and went down. However, Williams' autopsy apparently reports that he was only shot once, and that shot entered the side of his neck and went out the other side. Now, the FBI then, when they described what happened to Officer Williams, is he was behind cover. Now, the difference between cover and concealment is simple. Concealment hides you visually, but doesn't protect you from bullets. Cover is protection from bullets. If he was under cover and was facing and firing towards the Branch Davidians, it is hard to understand how a bullet went from side to side through his neck. They would not have been exposed to hostile fire, and it appears then that there was perhaps friendly fire that killed Agent Williams. That is the only one that I can say appears to, from the evidence that I've been able to gather, appears to have been a friendly fire casualty.
How about children, Gary?
Initially, I heard that possibly a number of children were killed in the initial raid. The only one we know for sure was David Croce's 2-year-old daughter. The videos that have come out in the past few days, the FBI, by their own count, has 12 children. They claim that they have seen pictures of 5 other children.
So according...
17 children are supposed to be inside, but one of those 17 children is supposed to be dead. So I don't know if the other 5 exist or not. Some of the rumors here, since one of the areas attacked was the children's living quarters and nursery area, some of the people believe here that perhaps more children were killed by the discriminate fire, as the ATF calls it. They're supposed to pick their targets before they fire. Apparently they did pick at least one child, perhaps more, to be targets.
Okay. Well, Gary, what do you think is going to transpire in the next few days?
Well, a lot of progress has been made. When I first got here, I spoke with Commander Maurice Cook of the Texas Rangers and asked him, well, with Eric Leiter and Nancy LaRosa, we did file a criminal complaint against the Texas Rangers and the sheriff and serve them for failure to perform their jurisdiction duty. Shortly after that, I spoke to Commander Cook, and he told me that politically he was not allowed to get involved in this. And I told him what my objectives were, and that was first to save lives, and second to make sure that justice was served.
But
politics would allow, he would take over the investigation and or jurisdiction. This morning I spoke to Commander Cook, Tuesday morning. I spoke to Commander Cook, and I had heard from the FBI that the investigation jurisdiction has been turned over to them. He did confirm that when the time comes for the investigation, that the Texas Rangers will conduct the investigation. He assured me that if people walked out right now, he would have Rangers on the scene within 10 minutes. He assured me that they would make every effort to make sure that there is no destruction or tampering or creating of evidence. And I feel very comfortable that Commander Cook understands the implications and the potential. I have sent a copy of the Mountain of Lies to him, so he understands what happened in Idaho. And I feel very comfortable, at least now, that justice will be served when this is over. We do have to assume that there will be a subpoena power that will get the videos, and that perhaps we will find out that the crime was not committed by the people inside, but in fact committed by the ATF forces when they assaulted the complex.
Well, all the information that we've gleaned is that that's exactly what happened, that the only crimes that were committed have been committed by the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Now, the information that we have gleaned so far that we've already done in one show has come partly from Nancy LaRosa and her friend whom you mentioned, Eric Leiter, and several of the residents who live in the vicinity. How long are you going to stay on the scene, Gary?
As long as the FBI is here, I'll be here.
Well, that may be for some time now. Do you see any signs of the people inside the compound weakening?
No, in fact, let me relate something rather interesting. I'm a Vietnam veteran as well, and I think we both understand what might be called siege mentality.
Yes.
When you're under fire and there's no relief in sight, and you're surrounded, outnumbered, armed, that there's a futility and a frustration. On Monday the 8th, we heard David Koresh through the FBI claiming that he could blow a Bradley 50 feet in the air. I think that might have been a ploy by the FBI to plant the idea that there might be explosives in there, but at any rate, there appeared to be a siege mentality inside, the frustration. On Tuesday morning on the Ron Engelman show, KGBF in Dallas, an AM radio station that we know they listen to, Ron Engelman and I have worked out an attempt to get some communication out of the complex. The previous Friday, the 5th, they had worked in determining if there was need for medical supplies. I was introduced as being a land surveyor and the editor of the newspaper, and then why I was there. And then a series of questions were posed, and as a single question, do you want somebody to come in? Would you promise guarantee your safety if he came in? Do you want somebody that's not affiliated with law enforcement? Somebody that's looking for a peaceful solution? The antenna was rotated, which was the signal for an affirmative answer that was worked out the previous Friday. The second question posed then was, do you grant Gary Hunt power of attorney to represent you and to enter the complex? And again, this time it was described as vigorous movement of the antenna, and would feel that the power of attorney was conveyed. Find out that has not been denied by anybody at this time. Less than 2 hours, or one of the discussions also included using a white sheet to indicate out the window to indicate things. But within 2 hours, the first sign came out and it read, God help us, send in the press. We saw optimism come out of the complex for the first time and virtually broke the siege mentality and broke the FBI's efforts to oppress these people into submission. And their optimism has stayed up since then. Dick DeGurian, an attorney from Houston, has gone in the last 2 days to speak with David Koresh. There still is no indication that they're ready to surrender. We're hoping that the things will change. I've spoken with Melvin Belli's office, and he's got a representative coming out here, and I think he'll be working with us. Dick DeGurian is just a bar attorney, and Melvin Belli is known as a reputation for being a fighter. We discussed jurisdiction. I can't discuss our tactics at this point.
Nor should you.
But I do think that there is a possibility that even more justice could prevail if we can get involved and get in and speak to Mr. Forge, and that's what our efforts will be.
Well, Gary, we thank you, and we wish you luck, and we'll be checking in with you from time to time, as well as with our other CAGI members who are down in Waco, Texas, covering events as they happen. Until next time, folks, good night, and God bless you all. And to all of the hostages in the compound known as Branch Davidian, God bless you, and keep You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm your host, William Cooper. Folks, if you've followed my broadcast for any length of time, you know that I've been bringing you news of the world without sponsorship. In part, I've been very leery of allowing just any corporation to buy time on my show, and we turned down an awful lot of people. I'm proud to announce a new alliance. Swiss America Trading Corporation and myself are committed to preparing my listening audience for the upcoming economic trauma. For over 11 years, Swiss America has been supplying over 10,000 clients with hard assets and constant information on how best to protect those assets. For a limited time, folks, interested listeners can receive a complimentary newsletter if you mention my name, William Cooper, and ask for the information on protecting your future. Call 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646. Call today and invest the time it takes to read one of the most important publications of our times. Call 1-800-289-2646. There's no obligation, folks. Nobody's going to knock on your door, and you get something free that's really worth reading. I promise you that. The siege continues in Waco, Texas. A small group of men and women trapped under siege by government forces in a church known as Branch Davidian stand upon principle, protecting their rights under the first article of the Constitution of the United States of America and the second article and amendment to that document. They are fighting the second battle of the Second American Revolution. Make no mistake about it, folks. We are at war, and you may be next.
Gary Hunt, welcome back to the Hour of the Time. 2 weeks ago, we did a show together, and that I just reran that this Monday night on WNRO, or WRNO, which is it here? Let me see. What radio station? WRNO. Sorry, folks, and I'm sorry, WRNO, but changing radio stations has got me a little bit confused, as well as the rest of you are trying to keep up and listen to this show. Your show was rerun on Monday night, and it's now Thursday night, and the last time we talked was just a little over 2 weeks ago. What's happened in Waco, Texas since then, Gary?
Well, very little has really happened. It's been a lot slower than it was at first. They have encircled the complex with concertina wire. I guess some of the speculation down here is if there are any convictions, if they're going to get credit for time served when they come out. They still don't acknowledge that they're under arrest, even though they are entrapped by the metal wire. There was an event the other day that caused a little excitement. That was when they were allowed to come out and light some incense outside. It was described initially as a smoke bomb, but it was some incense that was lit by Steve Snyder. So I spent a lot of time more recently trying to find out a little bit more about the Branch Davidian membership. I think you had Rita Riddle on last night, and I've been speaking with her quite a bit. She's a very interesting, very intelligent lady, as have all the people that I have been able to talk to that are members of the Branch Davidian Church.
Well, in my conversation with Rita Riddle, several things emerged, Gary, and maybe you can make a few comments on this. One, she didn't sound like she was crazy to me. She said that at no time was she or anyone else held hostage, that there was no child molestation, there was no promiscuity amongst any of the members of the church, including David Koresh. She stated that she never saw or knew of or heard of anyone practicing anything that could even be remotely construed as illegal activity during the whole time that she was with the church, and several other things that completely contradict what the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and the Federal Bureau of Investigation have been putting out at their news conference. She also stated that she's being held as a material witness, of course against her will, as a prisoner in a Salvation Army facility who is under contract and receiving funds from the federal government, which is another church functioning as a prison. And I found all these things eye-opening, shocking, revealing, totally contradicting what the government has put out. Can you comment on these things?
Well, the indications I have from the people in the church is they are practicing a religion as most people in this country do. It is very similar to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is a large organization that I've seen in virtually every city I've ever been or lived in. These people in the Branch Davidian sect might feel that the end times, as they call them, are coming a little sooner than the Seventh-day Adventists might. But then I recall from the early part of this century in the history books that the end of the world was coming and people should repent. So this is nothing new, and I'm sure it's occurred many times in the history of man.
It actually occurs several times each century with several different religious groups, some of which end up totally disappearing when they find out that the day the world was supposed to end, it doesn't end. Some of them go back and look in the scriptures and find a reinterpretation and continue going. But the point is, all this is harmless. I mean, they're not hurting anyone. And under our Constitution, they have a right to worship at the altar of their choice and believe whatever they want. And expecting the end times to be near certainly isn't breaking the law and hasn't hurt anyone else. Would you agree with that?
Well, I see no harm coming to anybody as a result of their actions or activities. In fact, one of the ladies I've met, Janet McBean, was in the Laverne, California home. She was a student in college out there, and she was also working and is very productive in society. A number of the people in the Waco church had jobs in the community and performed quite well in those jobs. They had good reputation with the people I've spoken with in the community that dealt with them. The only people in the community that seemed to have an objection to the Branch Davidians are those that did not know them before this incident occurred on February 28th.
Well, we find that all across the country. I was watching Jay Leno the other night, and he was making cracks about David Koresh stating that he's Jesus Christ, and talking to Rita last night, and to many other people that I've talked to in the Waco area, many of whom do not care for Branch Davidian, do not believe in the things that the church believes in, but they have all stated unequivocally that David Koresh has never said that he's Jesus Christ. Have you ever found anyone that's ever admitted that they've ever heard David Koresh state that he's Jesus Christ?
Well, the only ones that I have heard admit that they have heard David Koresh say that he was Jesus Christ are the BATF and the FBI representatives at the press conference.
And they don't even...
People I've spoken to, the people in the complex that I've heard and the ones I have spoken to do feel that David Koresh is the Messiah, just like Catholics see the Pope as the person who speaks for God.
But has he ever stated that he's the Messiah?
Only if I believe the FBI and ATF, and I have a lot of trouble doing that.
and you know something, what difference would it make if he did? It still wouldn't be hurting anyone. Why do they come out with these statements that are obviously false and try to make the man look like an utter, complete, crazy idiot when in fact he has not made these statements? And I've heard from Rita that while they said initially that David Koresh was the one that they were after, they're really after somebody else named Paul. Is that true?
Well, Paul Fata, they have accused of trying to get back in the complex. Now, here comes a very confusing story. Delroy Nash was arrested early in March. He was captured with a very dangerous weapon. It was a .22 caliber pistol made by Jennings. Mike Schroeder at the same time was killed and another individual escaped and was later identified as Bob Kendrick, who has since been arrested and charged. I think the charge that he and Delroy Nash have against them is attempted murder of federal agents.
Because they tried to get into the compound, that's construed as attempted murder of federal agents?
That is the charge brought against them. Whether they ever fired a shot or not is unknown. Bob Kendrick had a weapon, apparently, but it had never been discharged, and there's no reason to believe that the weapon that Delroy Nash had, now Delroy Nash is also Norman Allison. He's got an alias, apparently, but there's no indication that his weapon was discharged. Now, Mike Schroeder was the body that was found on the fence 3 days later. Apparently, they didn't realize they'd shot him when they captured Delroy Nash, but they had said that 3 people had attempted to enter the compound. In California, they indicated to a lady out there in an interview that they were after Paul Fata because he tried to gain entry to the compound at that same time. Well, Paul Fata was interviewed on Street Stories and was not in Waco or in this area at the time and did not make any claims that he was here. Now, Paul Fata apparently does have a firearms license and was lawfully purchasing or selling weapons or MREs. In fact, apparently the Branch Davidians do buy large quantities of military meal ready-to-eat cases and do sell them at gun shows quite frequently as a means of supporting the church.
Well, this is what Rita revealed last night, was that Paul was the one who has the federal firearms license and would attend gun shows and buy guns and MREs and many other things and turn them around and go to another gun show and sell them at a profit. And, of course, it made money for him and for the church. And but she said she didn't know of anyone else who was engaging in these activities. She said David Koresh was not. She said there was maybe 3 or 4 other of the men who would go to the gun shows with Paul. But there was no huge stockpile of weapons. There was no 50 caliber machine guns. There were none of these things, and that every single weapon that was owned by members of Branch Davidian were legal weapons and were legally purchased, and that the church itself owned no weapons whatsoever. Does this conform to what you've found out?
Yes, it does. In fact, from what I understand, Paul Fata was very meticulous in his record keeping, that when he came back to the complex, he would immediately record any purchases or sales of any weapons that he had transacted in his absence.
Well, that's required with someone who has a federal firearms license.
Yes.
And we would expect him to do that, and now you're telling us that that's exactly what he was doing, was conforming to the law.
That's my understanding, and I have yet to find any violations of the law on the part of the Branch Davidians, including the defense of their building.
So, Gary, what is this all about? Why are people dead laying in the cold, cold ground and 6 known dead adults still in that church who haven't had the benefit of a decent burial? What is this all about?
Well, let me correct one thing. 2 have been buried. One was Paul Schroeder. Of the 6 dead, 2 were killed outside the complex. One was Paul Schroeder, who was left on the fence. Now, remember, the FBI and ATF claimed that they were very discriminating in picking their targets, but for some reason they decided to leave Paul Schroeder on the fence for 3 days. Peter Gent, he apparently has subsequently been buried by the federal forces. Peter Gent was on top of that large tower. Generally, you'll see it off to the left.
And he's the one that they brought down.
He was brought down. I'm not sure how he was brought down, but his body was left exposed for 7 days, and we found is clearly visible in some of the videos laying on top of the tower for that entire time. Now, remember, these David Koresh negotiated a ceasefire so that the killing would stop and that the ATF could take out their dead and wounded. Apparently, I've heard that there was an understanding as well that the ATF would remove Peter Gent's body because it was outside of the complex proper on the water tower.
Mm-hmm.
They never removed it, and it was later done either by the Branch Davidians or by helicopter. I don't have a clear story on that yet. But the ATF and the FBI, the people who wanted humanity or humane treatment for their people, refused to offer the same in return for the Branch Davidians and allowed Peter Jent's body to remain exposed to the weather for 7 days. It was the body that we've seen buried to the side of the complex.
So then there's 4 inside that are dead that have not received a decent burial.
My understanding is there are 4 inside. Whether they have been buried inside or not, I do not know.
And these are adults?
I'm not sure. I have been led to believe that one of them is a child, a 2-year-old child that was killed, but there's no way to verify that. The FBI knows. They will not release the information.
Well, according to Rita, all 6 of the dead that have been admitted so far are adults, and she absolutely refused to tell me if any children had been killed. And this disturbed me a little bit, simply because I couldn't understand if children had been killed, this would do more to rally Americans behind them than anything else. But maybe she has a good reason for not disclosing that. I don't know, and I'm certainly not going to judge her for that. I know she has her reasons. But we have heard that David Koresh's daughter was killed, and that one other girl was killed. What do you know about that?
Well, there has been talk going around about a 6-year-old girl who was killed. I have no reason to believe that there's any truth to that at all. The people that have been spreading that claim that there is a video available, but they have not produced the video. They have also made claim that the Morse code message that came out had 7 short messages in it. However, we have yet to be able to determine if that's true, even though I've viewed portions of the video of the Morse code. In fact, I understand from people that were in the complex that it was just an experiment to see if the light could be seen, that no message was sent. We have no affidavit by somebody qualified to read that Morse code, so again, I think we have a rumor, as we did with the 6-year-old girl.
Well, it may be a rumor, but nobody can prove that the 6-year-old girl wasn't killed, can they?
Well, in speaking with people that were in the complex, they have not denied that perhaps one child was killed, but they have denied that more than one has been killed.
Okay, now, a lot of people are going to be very upset and confused about this. Can you tell us why they would refuse to acknowledge whether children were killed or not? I'd like to get this issue out of the way, because I know a lot of people out there would be just disturbed as I would when if someone said that they could not tell us if there were children killed or not. And I understand that you may have knowledge of some reason why they may have done this.
Well, as far as the Branch Davidians that have come out not divulging who has been killed, they do not want the families to worry based on rumor. They had decided before they came out, I think it was probably David's instruction, that until the FBI will officially acknowledge it, that they should not speak of what happened inside that is not common knowledge. And common knowledge, again, would be Schroeder and Gent. Now, the FBI and the press conferences have taken the same position. They say that everything David says is a lie. I'm inclined not to believe that, because I've found the press conferences fraught with lies by the FBI and the ATF.
Well, so far, the weight of truth tends to be on the side of David Koresh. Now, I don't know if David Koresh has told any lies or not, but one thing that we have definitely ascertained is that almost everything that the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms has told the public is a lie.
Well, we have a lot of situations, and if we take any one subject, we've heard 3 or 4 stories about it, or 2.
And they just changed another story.
One of them is bound to be true. We're just not sure which one the truth is.
Well, maybe none of them are the truth yet. Who knows? I was talking to my father today, who lives in Texas, and he told me that they just reversed their story on another point. I forget exactly what it was, but he said they just changed their story on the latest thing that they were telling.
Well, they did make a statement today, Monday, that I thought was interesting, and that was the only person this is Bob Ricks, the only person who's important to this whole scenario is David Koresh. If somebody had the magic formula, the magic words that would cause David Koresh to come out, certainly we would be seeking that. Now, David Koresh, you remember, on March 9th, asked me to come in to help find a peaceful solution. The FBI continues to ignore the fact that the only time that David Koresh has had an opportunity to get out directly to the public a message regarding seeking a peaceful solution was an invitation for me to come in the complex. The FBI acts like that doesn't exist, so there's one of the scenarios that we run into here.
Well, when they say that David Koresh is certainly the key to all of this, that is just an extension, and they have to stick to that story, because according to them, David Koresh is holding all of those people hostage, and they're not free to leave or come out unless he lets them go. So that has to be their position. Now, we know that that's a lie, because David Koresh couldn't possibly be holding those people hostage, because he couldn't possibly have gone without sleep for this amount of time.
I think we also know that from the people who have come out, because they've made it very clear to me.
That's correct.
They're not held hostage. In fact, some think that they made the wrong decision in leaving.
That's exactly what Rita said. She said that if she had known what she knows now, she would not have come out. And she said that at no time was she or anyone else ever held hostage. And the whole thing is ludicrous on the face of it, that the FBI and the BATF could still be trying to tell the world that these people are being held hostage by David Koresh, when we know that David Koresh has to sleep, and without somebody else to stand guard while he's sleeping, their whole story just falls to pieces, and there isn't anybody else.
It might have been necessary for them to justify bringing down their hostage negotiation team, which is a counterterrorism team. There are no terrorists in the mass civilian complex, so they can blame the hostage situation. But as I see it, the only hostages are the 90-some people inside the complex being held hostage by federal authorities.
Well, I got news for you, Gary. Our information from Washington, D.C. is that the entire BATF crew that's there is an anti-terrorist assault team.
Well, that's probably true as well.
What is the situation with the local people there? Don't they understand that this is not helping Waco or the entire state of Texas?
Well, on the contrary, Waco a few weeks ago had a proclamation honoring the BATF for bringing all the money into town.
You're kidding.
Now, last Sunday...
The city of Waco... Wait a minute, say that again. I want everybody to hear that. I want everybody in the world that listens to this broadcast to hear what the wonderful, sterling, upright citizens of Waco, Texas did.
The citizens of Waco, 2 or 3 weeks ago, had a proclamation, had one day, and I'm not sure which day it was. I will try and get that information and get it to you on another program. But I did see the proclamation, and they were honoring the BATF for all the business they brought to town.
Let's wipe out a church. Let's kill a bunch of people so that Waco, Texas can have some more money in its bank accounts. Boy, that's wonderful.
I suppose we'll have many chambers of commerce setting up a new committee. Which church to wipe out to bring business to town?
My God. Welcome to the New World Order, folks. If this is any indication of what's to come, and if this is any indication of the attitude of the American people in a small American town, especially in the state of Texas, a small town, my God, most small towns are bastions of freedom and supporters of the Constitution. Why in the world is Waco different from most other small towns in that regard?
Well, I'm not so sure that it would be. I think that we're dealing with a situation similar to 220 years ago, where less than 5% of the people really care about what form of government we have. The rest are satisfied with their six-pack and their movie. And they're not aware, and they accept government as qualified to tell them how to live their lives. They're not the type of individual that made this country great and strong. They're the type of people that are complacent as long as they're given what they want in life.
In other words, what you're saying is basically the citizens of Waco aren't people, they're sheeple.
They're sheeple, and they're typical of what we would find as probably a majority in most cities in this country.
Well, that's...
Let me tell you one more situation that's occurred out here. Janet McBean, when she got out from California, we drove around.
Well, let's tell our listeners who she is first, because they have no idea what you're talking about.
Janet McBean was well, her brother is in the complex now, but she was subpoenaed by the ATF to come out and testify before the grand jury. She testified on Tuesday. We won't know the results of that testimony.
Is this a federal grand jury, Gary?
It's a federal grand jury.
Okay, go ahead.
We drove out towards the complex on Sunday, on Easter Sunday. There's an area that we've called Observation Hill. It is about 6 miles distant from the complex, but it's just up the hill on 340 loop from the Farm to Market Road, 2491, which is the primary checkpoint to the complex area. It is the one the press goes into Satellite City. All the weekends prior to this, there have been a number of people up there that would be in the dozens, but there were virtually hundreds. There were actually dozens of different people selling T-shirts. Now, I noticed one predominant theme of the T-shirts, and that is that they are pro-BATF. Prior to that, there were anti-BATF or pro-David Koresh T-shirts. We didn't understand this, but virtually every person up there selling shirts was anti-David Koresh. It reminded me of the money changers story in the Bible, the money changers in the temple almost. As we left and went back towards Belmead, which is the town the BATF suited up in, off to the side of the road about a half a mile away was a small group of people selling T-shirts. We did not stop to see them, but they had a large sign up that said Rude Awakening. To me, that sounds like people that are selling David Koresh T-shirts, and I speculate that they were not allowed to sell the T-shirts on the hill where everybody else goes.
Well, I see it another way. It's probably pro-freedom, pro-constitution, pro-rights, pro-everything this country was founded upon. I don't think anybody knows enough to be pro-Koresh or pro-BATF. I think this thing is being manipulated at the highest levels. And I think that there's a lot of complicity with its citizens and the local officials in Waco, Texas. And I think that people are basically either for law and order, and they're believing what the authorities tell them, and they really think that these people are a bunch of criminals that deserve to die, or they understand the real threat to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and they're trying to get that message out. I doubt if there's anybody that's really pro-BATF or pro-Koresh, because I doubt if anybody outside of the BATF or outside of Branch Davidian really understands and knows what's going on enough to be pro or con either one of those. I'm not against the BATF. What I'm against is what they're doing that's destroying the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I know that you feel that way also.
Don't go away, folks. We've got to take a break. We'll be right back after this very short pause.
Where there is more controversy in.
Well, it won't work. And if you're listening on this line, BATF or FBI or anybody else, it's not going to work. The truth's going to get out, and you're going to answer for your actions. I can guarantee it. And there's a lot of other patriots in this country who are going to make sure that everybody in the world, not just in America, finds out what the truth is.
Are we still recording?
Yeah, we're still recording, and but we've got to take a break now, Gary. And so just hang on, and we'll get right back to you. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back after this very short pause. Well, we're back, folks. That didn't take long, and we are still talking to Gary Hunt in Waco, Texas. Before we were so rudely interrupted, Gary, you were trying to tell us something. Why don't you continue along those lines?
Well, in the long term, we've seen some changes in the administration of the control of the complex. Initially, it was a BATF operation. Almost immediately, the FBI came in as senior. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks ago that the Texas Rangers were identified as the investigators for this occurrence out here.
Hello, folks. This is William Cooper for Swiss America Trading. As you know, a fire has caused us to move. Now, when my friends at Swiss America Trading heard about the fire, they went right to work finding us another place to broadcast. Within a matter of hours, a new station was found, this station, thus making it possible for this program to continue to get the truth out to the world. The people at Swiss America Trading stand behind this program, and I want you to stand behind them. Swiss America Trading deals in protecting their clients through non-confiscatable, non-reportable hard assets. Now, you've heard me inform you about the trouble this country is in, both politically and financially. The time to act is now. Call the experts at Swiss America Trading at 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646, and have them show you how to protect yourself. Call 1-800-289-2646. That's 1-800-289-2646, and mention my name, William Cooper, for a free newsletter on protecting your future. By protecting your future, folks, you're keeping the future of this program and freedom for the world alive. Call today, 1-800-289-2646.
I'm not against the BATF. What I'm against is what they're doing that's destroying the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I know that you feel that way also. And I know that many other patriots in this country feel that way. We're not against those men who are out there in the BATF who are taking orders from somebody else who's taking orders from somebody else. Because I think that a lot of them know by now that they've done the wrong thing, and they're kind of wishing that they hadn't done it, and they're probably trying to figure out a way to get out of it and still maintain some kind of self-respect and respect for the American people. But I don't think that's going to happen now, do you?
Well, it may be occurring slowly, and we've had, if we look at
ladies and gentlemen, the phone line has just been cut off to Waco, Texas. If you'll hold on, we're going to try to reconnect. You heard it right there. They shut us off, and this is not unusual when we're trying to do this kind of thing. Well, we've dialed the number. Gary's staying at the, here we go. Just hold on, folks. 223, please.
Gary Hunt.
Gary, we were cut off.
Yes, the alligator clip's coming up.
Yeah, well, this is not unusual. With my radio show, we talk to a lot of controversial people about a lot of controversial things, and this happens quite frequently. In fact, sometimes when I'm talking to somebody about sensitive subjects, it happens every time we connect. Every time we get onto a subject that's particularly sensitive, and we were just talking about the BATF and the FBI, and I'm sure because of your activities down there representing us, that they're probably tapping into your phone. Have you had any indication of that?
It wasn't nearly as it didn't occur the first week or so I was here, and then it began occurring and got more and more frequent, and it does seem to occur more often in conversations where there is more controversy, yeah.
Well, it won't work, and if you're listening on this line, BATF or FBI or anybody else, it's not going to work. The truth's going to get out, and you're going to answer for your actions. I can guarantee it, and there's a lot of other patriots in this country who are going to make sure that everybody in the world, not just in America, finds out what the truth is. Before we were so rudely interrupted, Gary, you were trying to tell us something. Why don't you continue along those lines?
Well, in the long term, we've seen some changes in the administration of the control of the complex. Initially, it was a BATF operation. Almost immediately, the FBI came in as senior. And it wasn't until about 2 weeks ago that the Texas Rangers were identified as the investigators for the occurrence out here. There was a lot of effort by a lot of patriots to bring to the attention of the public that it would be wrong to let the fox guard the chicken house. And so the Texas Rangers have been given the overall investigative responsibility on this. They did begin their investigation, and shortly after their investigation began, there was a little bit of a row between the FBI, the ATF, and the Texas Rangers. That resolved itself within a few days. The FBI has since begun distancing themselves from the ATF. First, in the press conferences, we saw that the ATF was being asked very few questions. They were jokingly thanking the press for throwing them a bone when they were asked a question. Later, they separated the press conference to FBI first and then ATF, so the ATF could get their more bones or more questions thrown their way. With that separation, something interesting occurred. The FBI was dealing primarily with current issues, and ATF was dealing with issues of the original assault. At that point, then, the press had a different mindset when the ATF came up on the podium and began asking more critical questions of the ATF regarding, for example, the 3 people that walked in the window. Did they die inside? What really happened there? Very pointed questions.
You mean the press is beginning to ask real questions now?
They were beginning to ask some real questions. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, David Troy came out last Friday or Saturday and said, "This is our last press conference." Now, here's the guy that was wanting to have more questions asked of him. All of a sudden, he gets flooded with questions and decides there's nothing more to say and discontinues the ATF portion of the press conference.
So the BATF is not now holding any more press conferences because the questions are just too hot for them to answer, or is it for some other reason?
Well, they're too hot to answer, and also I don't think that they have a very competent system. I don't think they can remember what their last lie was.
Well, we're finding that out, aren't we? I mean, if you just go back and review the tapes of the 6 o'clock news and the local news and read what's been printed in the newspaper, you'll see that everything that they said, they've ultimately reversed and come up with sometimes 2 or 3 stories in place of their original story.
Well, I'll point out that you're very limited in what you have access to.
That's true. That's why we have to rely upon people like you and whoever else we can get a hold of in Waco, Texas, that's right there that really knows what's happening.
Well, I will be obtaining a complete set of videos of all the press conferences, and what I've been able to discern that you've been able to read out there in the press is limited to just certain questions where numerous questions are asked. But most often, the most interesting questions are not reported by the normal press. But at any rate, it seems that the FBI is attempting to distance themselves from the ATF, and I think, quite frankly, their reason is justified that they don't want to be accused of cover-up as the truth begins to expose itself.
Gary, are you going to be able to get us a copy of those so that I can air the discrepancies and the contradictions as a show or a series of shows if it turns out to be that long?
Well, I'm not sure what the copyright laws are on those, but I will be glad to provide you with that.
Fantastic. We're not concerned about... Let me tell you something. On this show, we're concerned with one thing, the truth. And I'm willing to go to jail to get the truth out. In fact, I'm willing to die to get the truth out and save this nation. And I'm not worried about copyright whatsoever on breaking news. In fact, the law says that breaking news is exempt from copyright, so that settles that anyway.
Well, it would seem if the FBI is attempting to provide this information to the public, that it should be public domain as well.
Well, that's true. It is. Breaking news, hot news, is public domain for a certain period of time. After that, then the tapes and things belong to whoever made them. But at the time of breaking news is not protected by copyright, period.
I should be able to get those off to you within a couple of days.
Fantastic. Because we'll certainly air them, and we will air the dirty laundry in front of the world, I can guarantee you. By the way, Gary, just so our listening audience will know, who are you down there representing?
Well, I'm representing the Outpost of Freedom, which is my newspaper published in Florida. I'm representing the American Patriot Facts Network, which is about as new as my newspaper. Both of them began in early February, and because of Waco, have stepped into one of the hottest things going. The SPFN has provided us a means of communication that is absolutely new to the Patriot community. We've got overnight delivery of my press releases every day to thousands of people across the country, including Hillary and Bill Clinton, Sessions, Higgins, Lloyd Bentsen, and Richards, the governor of Texas. The Texas Rangers are receiving our faxes, and the ATF compound, or the headquarters here, is receiving them, as well as yourself and many of the media around the country, and a lot of private individuals who disseminate the information, so we may be reaching tens of thousands. The newest person I represent, and I'm very proud to represent, is the Citizens Agency Joint Intelligence. It's the CAJI News Service, and also the Hour of the Time. That is your organization, and I feel honored to be affiliated with you.
Well, thank you, Gary. And of course, you have been fully accredited with press credentials from us. And also, I'd like to point out that the American Patriots Facts Network has made me an advisor to their organization. And of course, we get all the faxes, and we'll be using those on our program from here on out. There are a lot of people in this country who are doing a lot of things to help save this country, save the Constitution, and make people aware of what's happening. And, you know, a lot of people tell me when I travel around this country on my lectures and when I just meet people and they know who I am, they tell me, you know, I feel so helpless. There's nothing that I can do. I'm just one lonely person, and I don't have any power, and I don't have any money. But, Gary, you don't have any power, and you don't have any money, and I don't have any power, and I don't have any money, and I don't know anybody who's working in this that has gotten rich. Do you?
Well, there are a few that have gotten rich that profess to be patriots, but I think the indicator of a patriot nowadays, because we are so limited in our means, are those that are willing to put in their sweat, and their blood, and their tears into getting the message out to America and helping it grow. I've managed to stay here in Waco from contributions. I have a check on the wall here, $1, which was apparently all this lady could afford. But from what I've seen, the patriots that constantly circulate their money back into the movement are the ones that are helping pull these pieces together. Ken Barton, I think, is the best example. That he's just put his heart and soul every night into getting out hundreds of faxes. But it's a love of country that is binding us. It's not a love of money.
That's true. It's a love of country. It's a love of freedom. It's an understanding of what's really happening. And what's really happening is we're fixing to go backward in the evolution of human society from the point where man finally, in all its striving throughout history, finally became free when this country was created and our Constitution and Bill of Rights were written and made the supreme law of the land, and we stood as sovereign kings in our own right with the government as our servant. Now we're ready to give all that up and go backwards and become slaves again, with the government owning us as the king used to own us, as the king always, wherever there's a king, owns his subjects.
Interestingly, and I'm sure you're aware of this, the United States Supreme Court, and I don't have the site in front of me, but I'm sure a lot of the patriots are familiar with it, The Supreme Court said that the United States is a metaphor, that there are three definitions. Two of those definitions were sovereign. The first one is the president as he faces the world to represent the 50 states. The second is the U.S. government, which is sovereign to Washington, D.C., the territories, and the ceded land. And the third one, which is not sovereign, is the 50 states united, because that sovereign lies with the individuals. We know, many of us know that third United States of America still exists in this country, but most people have voluntarily or involuntarily joined the second one, which is the sovereign U.S. government, which is a socialized government.
That's correct. It resides within the boundaries of the Federal District of Columbia, and the territories are property ceded and deeded to the United States of America, residing within the Federal District of Columbia, and not the states or the people.
That entity, the sovereign, resides with the government, is a voluntary action of the body politic, which takes away the rights that God gave us and gives us to government.
That's correct. Anyone who voluntarily puts themselves under the jurisdiction of the federal government residing within the boundaries of Washington, D.C. has no constitutional rights. And that is in the Constitution, plain and simple. And our forefathers gave us everything that we needed to succeed and everything we needed to fail, and it was up to us to know the difference and act responsibly and maintain our sovereignty in the face of human nature. And the clause in the Constitution that enables us to fail is, of course, the right to contract. And whenever the state gives us benefits, and we accept those benefits, and by state I mean the state as defined as the Federal District of Columbia, the United States government residing within there, which Congress makes the laws for, is when they give us benefits, we actually contract to be ruled and governed by them instead of being a sovereign citizen of our state. Does that make sense to you, Gary?
Yes, it does. We receive the benefits. We just don't realize the cost that we will pay for those benefits.
That's correct. And isn't it human nature to want to take the easy route, to want to have somebody else provide for you, give to you, ensure you a job, ensure your old age, take care of your medical benefits, instead of starting out and planning and being responsible for yourself?
Well, that was one of the fears that Thomas Jefferson had when the Constitution was created. In fact, in our history, it goes back even further. There were two early colonies that we're all aware of, Plymouth Colony and Jamestown. Both of those, when they arrived on the shores of this great nation, were socialized. After a few years, they began failing. They were near death in cases. The effort, being communal in nature, wasn't sufficient to motivate the people to produce as well as they could. And in both cases, when they converted from socialized common ownership to free ownership or free man status, and each owned and reaped the rewards of his efforts, then both of those colonies succeeded and became the foundation of the concept that our Constitution was built on later. Now, you have to remember that this is the only country in the world that is founded on a basis of rights coming from God.
That's correct.
There we have something very common to David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. The right to practice our religion and to recognize that the rights come from God. And as we lose those rights, we become socialized like every other country in the world where men are put above God and are able to decide and rule and dictate our lifestyles.
Well, according to those who want to bring about the New World Order, those who belong to the secret societies and really have infiltrated in all levels of our society, government and military, they believe that there is no God, there is no Satan, there is only the working of man's mind. They believe in the Luciferian philosophy that man was held prisoner in the Garden of Eden, and he was set free by the gift of intellect from Lucifer through his agent Satan, and that by the use of this intellect, man himself will become God. It's the religion of humanism, and that's what we're seeing being brought about. And of course, the biggest enemy in their eyes to their religion is Christianity, is Orthodox Judaism, is the Islamic religion, and they have vowed to destroy those and to establish a religion that works in the best interest of mankind and changes with the needs of man instead of conforming to a moral law handed to man from God, and that man literally is the arbiter of his own fate, and because of that is at the mercy of the law of the jungle and has no rights given by God or anyone else. Whoever has the most power has the right to rule. Does this sound like something that conforms to what you've discovered?
Well, yes, but I go a little further. I think they recognize that there are two classes of men, them and us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The illumined man is the one that will rule, and the illumined man, of course, is the elite of the secret religion of the practice of Mystery Babylon, which is the worship of the mind.
Well, I think we can equate it more to an anthill, and the majority of the people are the ants that go out and are trodden upon by other people, and the hierarchy is those that stay in the anthill and are served by the others.
Absolutely correct.
Have you ever spoken with Tommy Buckley about Treasury Gate Bill?
No, I haven't, and I've refrained from that because of the Cosmos fiasco. We investigated that, and basically they were saying the same thing, and we found out that they were a bunch of, just flat a bunch of liars. So we're staying away from Treasury Gate so we can more thoroughly investigate the people involved and investigate the whole thing. It's my belief that if these people really had what they say they had, and I'm not judging them at all because our investigation is not finished, it has been the experience of our research that anyone who has posed a serious threat to the ruling elite have been summarily executed within a very short period of time, and these people have not been touched except you might say as a token, maybe to get us to believe them. I don't know, but we're investigating, we're finding out. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, Tommy is going to try and come down here to Waco next week. He is concerned for his safety. He has a bunch of bodyguards, but the federal lawsuit that he filed, the answer is due on Friday of this week.
That's correct.
And hopefully after that this may open up if it is legitimate. Now what I've reviewed of it appears to be, but as you said, we really don't know because there's been a lot of rumor and error associated with it.
That's correct.
If it is true, it indicates, it points directly to an elite that controls hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of gold. And at this point, I'm inclined to believe that hierarchy, that group inside of the anthill being served by the rest of us does exist.
Oh, absolutely they exist. There's no doubt about it. In fact, we've proven it on this show. I've done 18 hours of broadcasting revealing their history, who they are, how they came about, how they were able to control the wealth of the world, and just exactly what their plans are for the future. It's no mystery to the listeners of this radio show, I can assure you. And it's the explanation why Americans look around. They see this country dissolving right in front of their eyes. They see things happening they never thought could ever happen in this country. And Waco is one of the best examples. And they can't find an enemy, and it's because the enemy is their father. Sometimes it's their brother. Sometimes it's their mother or their aunt or their uncle or their grandfather or their grandmother or their sister. They're all around us, and they belong to secret societies which really collectively are one political movement, and they have slowly and surely infiltrated every element of our society, our military and our government, and they're in complete control right now. And the only thing that can save this country, and in fact freedom for the world, and that's what this broadcast is all about, is for the sheeple to wake up. People are always asking me, how can I protect my assets? And my answer is this: if the only thing that you care about is your assets, you're going to lose your ass, because you'll never be able to protect your assets unless you can save the Constitution and the Bill of Rights which are the only things that ever allowed you to ever have any assets in the first place?
Well, I've found people willing to share their assets to keep the effort we've got going down here in Waco going.
Me too, and we've had
more and more people are realizing, excuse me, what you just said, that their assets mean nothing unless we have the freedom to enjoy those, just like Plymouth and Jamestown.
That's correct. Gary, if people wanted to, well, let's back up just a little further. You have a home, don't you?
Somewhere.
Where do you live, Norm?
Florida.
And you have a home there, right?
Yes.
And do you work?
I am a land surveyor.
Okay, and how long have you been in Waco, Texas?
Since March 6th.
Since March 6th, and that's 38 days, and you haven't been home, is that correct?
I have not been home.
And you haven't been working, is that correct?
I have not. I've tried to keep my office going by phone. I've lost a few clients as a result of my being here. I hope that I can recover them if and when I get back from Waco.
Well, the reason I'm asking you this is I want Americans who are more concerned about their job than they are about this country. I want them to hang their head in shame when they hear this. They know what I've lost and what I've given up in order to do what I'm doing. They've heard what other people who have appeared on this show have lost and what they've had to give up in order to do what they're doing, all to try to save this country, so that a whole bunch of assholes out there who care more about their job than they do about the country can have some assets to be concerned about. And I want you to give an address where people can send donations to help you stay down there and to help you stay afloat while you try to get at the truth, try to bring some kind of a peaceful resolution so that there's no more loss of life, so that you can represent CAGI with the press credentials that you have, and can appear on more of these shows and inform the people not only of this country but of the world. Give us an address, Gary, where people can send donations and who they should make those donations out to.
Okay, donations, checks are, we don't have a bank account here. When I say I've got some local people that have been helping me. So checks are almost impossible to cash, but postal money orders made out to Gary Hunt, we can cash, or left blank, whichever you prefer, and cash donations we receive. They can be mailed to Davidian, D-A-V-I-D-I-A-N, Fund, 1201 Lake Air, A-I-R, Drive, number C114, Waco, Texas, 76710.
Well, you heard it here, folks, and nowhere else. As you know, a fire has caused us to move from WWCR to WRNO. And when our friends at Swiss America Trading heard about the fire, they went right to work finding us another place to broadcast. Within a matter of hours, a new station was found, thus making it possible for this program to continue to get the truth out to the world. The people at Swiss America Trading stand behind this program, folks, and I want you to stand behind them. Swiss America Trading deals in protecting their clients through non-confiscatable, non-reportable hard assets. You've heard me inform you about the trouble this country is in, both politically and financially. The time to act is now. Call the experts at Swiss America Trading at 1-800-289-2646 and have them show you how to protect yourself. Mention my name, folks, William Cooper, for a free newsletter on protecting your future. By protecting your future, you're keeping the future of this program and freedom for the world alive. Call today, 1-800-289-2646. Good night, and God bless each and every single one of you.